Hi, this is Eddie Muller, back with TCM's Friday Night Neo-Noir series, which I am hosting with my colleague, Ben Mankiewicz. And we have a very interesting film coming up, starring Gene Hackman at the height of his career, really.
Yeah, 1975, Night Moves, directed by Arthur Penn. And sometimes when I say a movie is interesting, it means I don't really like it. But I know that's not the case for you.
No,
here.
No. I do like this.
This is good. What makes this a neo-noir?
Well, it's a detective story, and one thing about noir detective stories, as opposed to normal detective stories, is that in noir they tend to be about the detective more than they're about the solution of the crime, and that's kind of what happens in this movie. Harry Mosby, the character that Gene Hackman plays, is trying to solve a crime because he thinks that solving this crime will give his life meaning and value.
His motivations for solving it, they're similar to Paul Newman in Harper, which we did 3 weeks ago, the first night of first Friday in July when we kicked off this series. I think Harper was the first film that we did as part of the series. They are driven because they are going to solve it. In one point, Harper even says, like, I'm going to solve this case, right? He's driven. And that's clearly what Harry Mosby's motivation is here. As the movie moves on, as you'll see, he doesn't have to do what he's doing, right? He's figured the part out that he needed to figure out. Now he wants to get to the truth. That's what.
Well, there's that, and there's also, and obviously they make clear in this movie that his obsession with solving the case is also an avoidance of his own problems in his own life. And it's interesting because I've heard interviews with Arthur Penn where he said that he chose to make this movie because he found so much of himself in the character of Harry Mosby. Because as you'll recall, I mean, Arthur Penn was just hot as could be in the late 60s, right? He'd made Bonnie and Clyde. He did Little Big Man was a big hit.
With Hoffman.
But then things kind of fell apart for him in the early 70s, and he didn't have a lot to do. And so when this script came along, he just kind of jumped on it. It was offered to him, and he jumped on it, and he found a lot of meaning in it.
I think it's interesting that Penn sees himself in Harry Mosby, and that also Harry Mosby again throws himself into the case, gets the obsession about the case to avoid dealing with the issues in his life. But they aren't classic or stereotypical movie problems. He's not an alcoholic. He's not violent. He's not a drug user, right?
Yeah.
He just doesn't talk about his feelings. It's a really human problem, and it's not, on its face, it's not very dramatic. Right, which is another reason why I like this movie. Right, everybody in this movie, from Hackman on down, his wife Susan Clark, who's really good. Harris Yulin's good in this film too. Melanie Griffith in her debut.
And Jennifer Warren.
Jennifer Warren,
fantastic.
Right, and was really the motivation for getting the movie made. Right.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, Alan Sharp, who wrote this screenplay, who's a Scotsman, by the way. When he came to America, he kind of came from the East Coast and went through the Florida Keys and met this woman that this character, Paula Sharp, is based on, and was obsessed with the idea that he had to write a story about her and fit her in somewhere. And eventually that's what morphed into this story, which was not originally called Night Moves. I think it was called The Dark Tower or something like that. And which I find kind of fascinating, because a movie about a detective, usually the detective is the starting point for a writer. But this character of Paula was the basis for this story. And she is terrific in the movie.
Yeah, she's wonderful. She shows up. It takes a bit to get to Florida, which is where she is. But, man, she's striking, and it's just a really appealing character. It's hard not to be on her side, even though you'll have a very difficult time figuring out exactly what her side is.
Anyway, this is a fascinating movie, and I think a time capsule of the period. And if people haven't seen it before, I hope they get something out of it.
Yeah, if you like movies, you're going to get something out of this one.
Yeah. So here it is, from 1975. Here is Gene Hackman starring in Night Moves.